Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. With me this week, I have the remarkable Dr. Jennifer Berry. She's a transformational leader driving purposeful collaboration between education, industry, and community ecosystems, and she's the CEO of SmartLabs. Jennifer, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
First, very easy question is, where in the world are you?
I love that question. I am in beautiful, sunny San Diego, California, in the United States. San Diego is, 70 degrees, 70 to 75 all year round. And today is no different. It's gorgeous outside.
I'm so jealous, but I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Well, we do miss the seasons. So I have to go find the
Yeah.
seasons because as much as it's beautiful all year round, sometimes we have to go look for snow or look for rain or look for the fall leaves in other places. So we do get to travel a lot as well.
You're always welcome here. We have all of the seasons. Most of them include rain, however, unfortunately, at the
Ah,
moment.
beautiful. I love
No,
that.
yeah. So about your journey is quite unique, I think. So, I mean, obviously, you're now the CEO of a major STEM education organization, but you were a
Yeah.
professional dancer, you were in performing arts. So,
Yeah.
what were the pivotal moments that shifted your focus from sort of the physical storytelling into education and leadership?
Love this question. I don't think I've ever not been a physical storyteller, even in my journey as a CEO. But I think in my early years, even when I was a dancer, I realized that I needed to use more than just my body to tell stories and also my words. And so, I dabbled in acting as well. But the reality was I felt really called to be of service. Being of service to youth has been sort of an itch for me since I was little, and really making sure that young people are set up for success to be the best versions of themselves and to be and powerhouse in this ecosystem of world we live in. And I just feel like I was always drawn to that. And I know, I have this journey where I had to actually go to the choreographer of my dance company and tell him I wasn't going to be a dancer anymore and I was leaving to go to college. And, it's the opposite of most people's stories. Most people's stories are going to their parents and saying, I'm not going to college. I'm going to become a dancer. And I was doing the opposite. I was going and saying, I'm giving up this dancer's journey and moving to go to college so that I can really fill my brain and mind up with things that I haven't really gotten to use that muscle, right? I was using the muscles of my body, but wasn't always getting to use the
Mm.
muscles of my brain as much as I feel like I needed to. And so that pivotal moment of making that decision to leave a dance company where I was getting paid to move to college where I had to pay to go was a pivotal moment for me. And from there, I just took the journey of figuring out what did I want to do in this life? How did I want to give back? And I got the fortune of getting into the retail environment actually when I was first coming out of college, actually during college and then right out of college. And that journey was really powerful because it taught me the lessons of full cycle, full circle business, right? Everything from customer service to product development to marketing to sales to branding, and really helped me understand what it means to create a sustainable organization, something that really is driven by its mission. And I really learned early on in my working career in business what it meant to run a strong, solid retail organization. However, in that retail environment, I always felt like I was making up my passion for it, right? I was saying, well, if they look
Mm.
good, they feel good. Right. And they're contributing to this world because they're feeling good in their own skin. And so that was true and accurate, but I was sort of forcing that narrative. And I went back to get my master's degree in public administration because I always felt this calling of what else can I contribute? How can I lay down my head on a pillow at night and know I'm contributing to a greater good in this world? And from there, after or during my master's program, and then after, I got recruited into the education space. And that was I think world changing for me actually, because it was this
Mm.
moment of realization that that's where I belonged. It almost felt like a comfortable scarf or a comfy blanket. When I put it on, I realized, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be learning from youth and I'm supposed to be giving back to them in a way that can really serve them in their career. And so that moment of transitioning from dance to retail to then the education space was really pivotal and life changing for me. I didn't go into the traditional education space of being a teacher or a principal or superintendent, but I went into the space of really trying to figure out what makes children tick, what makes children learn.
Mm.
How can I get involved in organizations that really help and serve that learning process? beyond just the traditional classroom and that traditional classroom space. And so I've really had an amazing journey, everything from supplemental tutoring to after school programs to the special education world to helping teachers become more effective in their craft to helping students in the summer learning space to now leading a STEM organization where we get to work with students that do hands-on project-based learning to really pivot them from learning how to solve problems and make mistakes to connecting that to a career potential for them in the future. So that's been a really great journey for me and really something that I geek out about because I geek out about the neuroscience behind it all and how kids' brains work and I get the fortune of leading a company where we get to talk about that every day. And then I get the fortune of being a mom of a beautiful 11-year-old who also I get to learn and try and try to figure out her magnificent brain and what I can do to help foster its learning and its ability to thrive in this world. So it's been
I
really a
love
fun
that.
journey.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's such a privilege to find the thing that you want to do. But on a little bit of a side note, just to make you, I don't know if it makes you feel better or not. I was in the army, and I have a friend who I say ran away from the circus to join the army.
Yeah. See,
Completely
this
backwards
is it.
again. Yeah, it does
Yes,
happen.
it does
But
happen. I love this.
I
See,
do.
I need to meet your friend so we could
I
have that
honestly,
symbiotic relationship. Yeah.
he ended up doing bomb disposal as well. Like he went from as creative. I mean, he's wonderful. But anyway,
I
all that
love that.
aside,
Yeah.
I do think, and when I first graduated, I went into teaching, and I realized
Mhm.
that I loved the kids, but I hated the school system. And like
Mhm.
I was. When I was in school, I was very lucky because I was academically very bright naturally, which also, of course, makes me
Mhm.
lazy and a really horrible student to have, right? Because, you can get by them in an effort. And
Yeah.
going back into teaching, I was like, this is not a good fit because actually I don't like homework.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the kids. But I
Yeah.
also think now I'm in my 40s that
Mhm.
I would, well, not I, teachers in general, to relate to the children of today in particular,
Mhm.
having a more diverse background is an advantage because the world has
Mhm.
changed so much. And is there anything that you've brought over from, the physicality of dance, from the
Mhm.
creativity of the acting and
Mhm.
that's performing arts space that you
Mhm.
use in your stuff now that perhaps you don't see in other mainstream education environments?
Yeah, I think the storytelling aspect, and especially as education is, rooted in this sort of rigorous academic and teach to the test um, sort of philosophy with also this new added powerhouse of AI that is
Yeah.
taking over and really having educators grapple with what does that mean for not only the learner, but what does it mean for the students and their future jobs? And so, what are we teaching them today that will serve them in the future if AI can do most of that? Right. So, that conversation is really alive and well. And I feel like what I've brought or I hope to bring to this space is the constant push on the fact that humans still have the need for connection. Humans still
Mm.
have the need for learning from each other and learning about the handover of cultural stories, right? And the unity that humans need, like innately, right? We need that innate community. We need that innate bonding with each other. And so, although I run a STEM organization, right, rooted in science and technology and engineering and math, I believe that really creating what we've coined as STEM identity, which has been researched for years, but we've coined this sort of definition of STEM identity that is about the learner's belief that they belong, that they can
Mm.
master rigorous challenges, and that their ideas add value. So when most people think about STEM identity, they might be like, oh, this person is a really good engineer. Like they have an engineer mind. They're a logical thinker, right? And I actually am like, well, actually, I want them to feel like they belong in that space. They belong in a space where it's okay to make mistakes and they can master a rigorous challenge because they're used to failing and they're okay with failing. So I feel like this early learning of dance and storytelling and the discipline that it takes to become a professional dancer, because it's discipline, right? You have to work your muscles, you have to
Mhm.
work your mind, you have to rehearse, fail, bleed, literally bleed, feet bleeding, toes bleeding, constant work to then get on a stage for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or an hour, however long the play or the dance performance is, to tell a story. Let all that routine and structure and discipline go and tell a story has served me in my career, has served me in my life. And so when I bring that to my organization, and I bring that to what we're giving to students, it's this idea that the discipline and the routine and the structure matter. But then there's a point where how you think matters even more, right? How you communicate with others matters even more. How you critically analyze a problem and are okay with failing matters more, because that's what's going to get you faster to the solution, right? You mentioned you were in the Army. There's no better example of routine and discipline and structure than some sort of military training, right? But when you're in the face of a real war or a real circumstance where you have to make tough decisions, you have that background, but you have to make good, timely decisions. You have to make fast ones. You have to communicate well with the others that are in your troop, or, sorry, I'm not speaking military language correctly, but, like this
You're
idea
fine.
that I'm fine. Yeah. Right. You have to kind of throw away all your discipline and your training and have an instinct that kicks in, but you're rooted in that
Yeah.
discipline and that training. And that's very similar with dance. And so when I think about preparing students for future careers, when I think about preparing students for the world that they're going to be handed as adults, I want them to be confident that they can communicate with others, confident that they can critically think, confident that they have the ability to discern between what's right and wrong, confident that they are okay with failure, and um, their strength is bigger, their internal strength is bigger than maybe even the problem that's in front of them. And so I hope that I'm bringing that to the organization that I lead. I hope I bring that to the team that I lead, right? I hope that we bring that to the development of the curriculum, and how we're positioning this for educators and for the school districts that we're working in. Because in the end, I want students to be able to say, I belong here, I can do this, I add value, and I'm future ready.
I love that. And I completely agree. I think mindset is everything. Um,
Everything.
and there's so many, quotes about if you think you can do rest. But from your point of view,
Yeah,
from SmartLab's mission, it is all about sparking those aha moments and building that STEM identity. But
for
how did
sure.
that specific language and this idea of identity become central to your company's vision, do you think?
Really, when I first got here, I took a lot of time going into the labs across the country that we had already been servicing, right? Going in and listening to the facilitators and to the educators and to the students, and then sitting down with those that were writing and developing our curriculum and really digging in to understand what were they writing it for? What's the impact that we're trying to make? And as I listened and I learned and I talked to every single person that worked in the organization, and I do that often. I do what I call listening tours with my team often, because I want to hear, what are they hearing? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? What are the customers saying? What are the students saying? As I did that, I started to realize that it was bigger than the stuff we were putting in the school district, right? We sell an ecosystem. So there's furniture that we sell, and there's kits and equipment that we sell, and there's curriculum that we sell, and we do training for facilitators, and then we sell a support team that services, right? But that's just stuff. That's just things that we give you. That's just things. But as I started to peel back the layers to figure out, well, what does that stuff do? Like, what is the point, right? I call it the question, the why. I actually call it the so what factor. Like, so what? So what that we give them stuff? So what that we give them training for their facilitators? That's all great. It's all good. It helps the school be sustainable. But so what? And really saying that over and over. Okay, great. That's an answer. So what? What? So what? So what? And after a while, and we got to the root of this so what test, we got to, right, well, we want the learner to have a self-belief again that they belong. And so then we said, all right, well, if that's the root of this, that a student comes out of the other side feeling confident that they could be in any space, because every industry uses a STEM application. Every industry. There's not an industry out there that doesn't use STEM applications. Most people think of STEM as just science, just technology, just engineering, just mathematics. That's not true. You use STEM applications in your work. We're using it right now. We're using a microphone. You're going to use in editing. We've got a tool that you're using to film the podcast, right? Every single job out there, whether you're in
Yeah.
manufacturing, whether you're in communications, whether you're in information technology, whether you're in, control technology, whether you're in mechanics and structures, it doesn't matter. Whatever industry you're in, there's STEM applications. And so, the school systems are going to teach the kids how to read and write. right? That's what they're going to do. I want to be a part of teaching kids how to think and how to be able to be comfortable with STEM applications and be comfortable with saying, oh, that's a problem. Oh, we could use this application to solve that problem and feel confident in that. So after listening, after learning, after seeing, meeting with my team, we as a unit, we as a leadership team kind of pulled that all together to say, all right, so what? So what is that we are getting these students the STEM identity that they deserve. All students deserve that, no matter what geographic area you live in, no matter what socioeconomic area that you were raised in. You deserve to feel confident that you can solve any problem with some sort of STEM application that you're going to need to solve it. So I think it came from just that listening and learning moment, and then that so what test, and having the team kind of grapple with what is all this for?
Mm.
And what are we trying to solve in the end? Because, running a good business that's sustainable is one thing, but knowing that you're making a true impact in the future, and kids to me are the future, is what I
Yeah.
really care about the most.
I mean, that's brilliant. And I think more of this kind of thinking is needed because, and you go back to the business basics of you're going to solve a problem. So what's the problem? Like we need a microphone so we can record our speaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I haven't got a human to talk to, what's the point of the microphone? And I think
Yeah.
we focus, or we can focus so much on just the tech. And AI is
Yes.
here, as we mentioned. There are lots of
Uh-huh.
benefits to AI. There are some challenges with
Uh-huh.
AI. Like any
Uh-huh.
technological revolution, is going to happen. But if
Yeah.
you teach children of today that with the right critical thinking, with the right mindset, with the
Uh-huh.
right support
Uh-huh.
network, the right communication, you can solve every
Yeah.
every problem. And I think what I like about yours is isn't about solving it on your own either. It's being part of that
No.
community. We can get
Yeah.
together and solve it. But oh, I feel like I don't see that enough. I think that's
Uh,
really important. And to your point of listening and aligning with what you're hearing, many people listening are on their own journeys to kind of find meaning and purpose.
uh-huh.
So what advice would you give to someone trying to align their work with impact the way that you have, especially if their background doesn't fit a traditional model?
Yeah, I think listening to who you want to serve. So in my case, who I want to serve is students, right? Of course, the students are buying the product, right? That's the school districts in my world, right? We're selling to school districts who put these STEM labs in the schools, and then but really the end user is the student. And so I talk, and I have the fortune of being a mom of an 11-year-old. So I listen, talk to her, and have conversations with her, and really peel back. What does she want? What does she want? What does she need? How does she think? What makes her excited? What makes her excited to learn? What doesn't make her excited? Like really, and then I listen to all her friends, and I get the fortune of driving them here and there and everywhere to various practices and various this and that and the others. And all us parents know what I'm talking about. You're constantly dropping your kid off here, and then you're waiting, and then you're dropping them off there, and then you're waiting, you're dropping them off in another place, and you're waiting. And yet that's a beautiful time for me to hear her and her friends talking, her and her friends, what they care about, what makes them tick. And so because I'm rooted in trying to solve a problem for students, my job is as the leader is to listen to the constituents that I want to serve. And so I do listen to what they want. And I ask a lot of questions as to what they need and what makes them tick. So my advice to people that are like, oh, I want to start this, or I want to find my passion, or I want to take this passion that I have and push it to the next level and I don't know where to go. Rather than trying to start a business or just fix a problem, go listen and learn, because you might go on one path and then realize, wow, if I talk to the constituents I'm trying to serve, they might tell me something I hadn't even thought about. They might tell me something that they need, or the way in which they think, or the way in which they want that problem to be solved that I hadn't even thought of before you even pick up like, oh, here's the technology that's going to solve that problem for them, right?
Mm.
Because if you know the true root of the constituents' desires, needs, problems, things that are in their way, then you could say, all right, now this piece of technology or this thing will help solve that. Right. So my advice is to just constantly listen and never let it be only one time, right? Do it once, do it twice, do it again, solve the problem with something, and then go back and listen. Did that work? Did it not? is is there something more that they're looking for? Is this short term? Is this going to be a long-term fix? Are they happy with this? Are they not happy with that? So that would be my advice. Constantly listen to the people that you're trying to serve, or the mission you're trying to um, attack, right? I even think of,
Mhm.
I have a friend that's trying to start a nonprofit right now, and she is really passionate about food insecurity and those that have, that have little and aren't getting the necessary food to nourish themselves. And she's trying to figure out, like, is it a food pantry that she starts? She's coming up with this idea of maybe there's like a truck that can drive around. We have a homeless problem here in San Diego. And is there a truck that she can drive around and, give people fresh food, where they're living, which is on the streets? And is that something she wants to do? She's really grappling with this. And we had this long conversation about, why don't you go and ask, what do the people want? What do they need? And she first started with, like, I think I'm going to do this food truck and I'm going to drive around and drop stuff off. And then she realized, when she started asking questions and what people wanted and what people needed, and going to those soup kitchens that have been doing this for years, and like, what brings people to your soup kitchen? What brings people? She started to realize that there was a real need for, pets that need the food, right? Like, that
Mm.
they were more concerned about the fact that they had their support system. The homeless support system was their dog that sat next to them, right? And in some cases, they were more concerned about their dog not getting food than themselves even not eating. And so she started to have this idea of, like, oh, wow, by listening to what their needs were and realizing that they have this connection to this animal that is their confidant, that's their support system, that's their network, and they want to make sure their dog is set up for success. Now she's kind of on this road of trying to figure out, okay, maybe I could drop off dog food, like, in
Mhm.
various places around the city, so that people can pick it up and feed their pets and their animals that are homeless. So I don't know. That's just I don't know why that popped in my head, but that's an example of, like, listen, rather than just get your idea and go for it, go ask the people, right? And that you want to serve, and see what their ideas are. So
Do you
that's
know,
another
I
example that I was thinking of.
no, there's two things come to mind. One is, so the very first time I spoke at an international conference, I applied to one in Detroit where nobody knew me,
Huh.
just in case I was terrible. And I was doing a lot of work on program management. It's all about agile program management. And I remember
Mm,
I gave this thing. It's all about agile with creative businesses.
sure.
Anyway, this lady said to me, "We've just rolled out agile in our offices." And
Uh-huh.
before we rolled it out, everyone got on. But since then, there's been loads of things like the old generation to get with the young generation. And I said, "Did you ask them what they wanted and listen to what they needed?" She was like, "No, we just did it because that's
Yes,
what it was." I was like, "Well, that's why you didn't listen. It's
that's
that simple."
why.
Um,
Yeah.
so, and
Yeah.
and also, you know, and as a side note, they didn't hate me, so it worked out well from a
So you
speaking
were
point
able
of
to
view.
do more. You were able to do more. And here you
I
are with
was
your own
indeed,
podcast.
indeed. And the other thing, though, on your friend on the homeless thing, there's a lovely vet in Glasgow in Scotland. I think it's in Glasgow, but they provide free veterinary care for homeless people's animals, and they go
Oh,
out and
I
they
love
they
this.
provide that and as a service. So, like you say, it's what is needed and where are
Hmm.
they at. So,
Hmm.
well, good luck to your friend anyway. Fingers
I
crossed.
know. I hope for her. Now that I'm even talking about it, I'm like, okay, how can I help her invest in this
Yeah.
project?
Aw. Well,
Yeah.
you've led across many different sectors in
Hmm.
education, because as well as SmartLab, I know you've done the after school All Stars and Kaplan, and I
Hmm.
love what you're talking about the listening side of things. But have you had
Hmm.
to unlearn anything on the way in your leadership journey?
Yeah, I think I've had to unlearn, and I know this is going to sound a little bit different than I was just talking about, but I had to unlearn that I was supposed to have all the answers.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think that's, I can only speak from my point of view, right? My four corners of the universe as a woman leader. But I think I went into the space as a leader thinking, oh, I when I saw the people that were sitting at the table, when I saw the people that, were sitting in the boardroom or were in leadership positions in the suite, the C-suite level, I thought, oh, they must have all the answers. They must just know, they must be
Mm.
the smartest people in the room. They must have all the answers. And I think I entered the space as a leader trying to kind of put on that cloak of knowing. Like, oh, I know it all. I've done that. I've been there. Or even if I haven't, I have to fake like I've done it. I've been there. I have to walk like I know all the answers. And I found that often made me land flat on my face, because then people were constantly looking to me for the answers, right? They were looking to me to solve all the problems. And so as I moved through my career and kept stepping up into the next role, the next role, the next role, I realized quickly that, like, I actually didn't know all the answers. And it was more fun to not be the smartest person in the room. And it was actually more fun to surround myself with people that knew more, had very fine skills in a particular area, and they could bring a knowledge and a skill and an intelligence to that problem from their lens that was much more sophisticated and intelligent and thoughtful than I could ever come with. And I realized quickly that sort of that armor of I'm supposed to know it all, I got to take off. I got to undo that cloak of armor and realize that like it's actually better to not be the smartest person in the room. It's actually better to not it's actually
Yeah.
better to not know it all and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, that are more equipped
Mm.
than you, and that you can pull together in a way to solve a problem in a unified way. Right? Because everybody's diverse perspective and diverse approach to something can make the answer or the solve better. And so I think I had to unlearn that pretty quickly. And now I see that as my superpower, that like I own that I do not have all the answers. I own that I do not know. And I go and look for the smartest people in the room. I go look for those that really understand something deeply, beyond my wildest imagination. And I try to pull them into the discussion and pull them up to the table. And that sort of aha moment for myself of like, you do not have to know it all. In fact, it's better not to. Because when you know it all, you can get very um, myopic. You can get very single minded.
Mm.
When you
Yeah.
don't know it all, you're sort of like, okay, let me listen to that. Let me listen to that. Let's pull that together. And then you can make a more well-informed decision, I think. And so I think that was something I really had to unlearn early in my
I
career.
I think that's a really important thing to be aware of. And I've done different leadership positions. And I also find, I mean, less so now I've got older, but when I was in my 30s and I was leading teams, I was often younger than a lot of my team.
Hmm.
And so I felt that pressure of I have to know stuff because
Yeah.
I'm like, must be here for a reason. But it's exhausting as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to know, provide everything. And
Hmm.
what I like about what you're saying as well is it does create the culture of not relying on one person,
Hmm.
which is not healthy for any organization and
Hmm.
not healthy for the individual, but also
Hmm.
reflects the fact that we are all imperfect. We don't all, no matter how even for the smartest person in the room,
Mm.
there'll be something you won't know or can't do, and that's okay. And we've got to normalize being okay with being who we are, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and part of what we teach at SmartLab for the students is to be comfortable with failure. And
Mm.
so, because I was groomed in the dance space, we were constantly faced with failure, right? Can you do one turn, two turns, three turns, up to six turns, right? And you couldn't do six turns when you first started. So you'd start with one, and then you'd have to work your way up, right? And then you'd have to work your core muscles, and then you'd have to work your strength, and then you'd have to work your balance, and then you'd eventually get to your sixth turn. And so you'd fall off your turns many times, you'd fall on the ground many times. And so I got really comfortable with failure. And so that for me is sort of innate in me of being okay with failure. And not everybody's like that. I hear people say a lot
Mm.
like, I did a listening tour with one of my employees the other day, and she said, well, I'm a perfectionist. Everything has to be just perfect. And I thought like, wow, there's nothing in the world that's perfect. And I
Mm.
love the beauty of the perfectly imperfect, right?
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I thought, wow, that's a heavy that's a heavy weight to carry with you, that things have to be perfect, right? Because when things are disrupted, when things fail, when things don't go your way, that could be debilitating. And so when we're working with youth and training them, we're really working with them on this failure as part of the journey, right? And people get really scared about saying the word failure because it sounds so like, oh, you don't want to fail. And like, I actually want to lean into that word. Failure is the next step to something better. And when I look back at my career, most of my learning came from failure. And so I I love that you talked about the imperfect, because the imperfect is really what makes this life so much richer. Because who
Mm.
wants to be around a bunch of perfect people?
One, I think they'd be boring, and two, I wouldn't trust
Boring.
them, to be honest. Yeah,
Oh,
boring
I'd
and
love that.
untrustworthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that word untrustworthy, because it's untrustworthy because it's like, well, then we're not thinking from diverse perspectives, right?
Mm.
Because a
Yeah.
perfect would mean that we're all doing it the same way, right? And nobody wants to do things all the same way, because that would be boring, but it also wouldn't
That would be boring.
solve the levels of problems that we need to solve because not everybody came from the same background. Not everybody comes
Yeah.
from the same corner of the universe, right? And what people need is different. And so, therefore, why not put a tapestry of different solutions and different ideas and different people in the room and at the table so that we can touch people in different ways, not just touch the people because they think and act just like you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
looking ahead on that vein of thought, looking ahead, what do you see as the most significant shift in how education needs to prepare children for life after school or life after homeschooling, whichever the form they're doing?
Yeah. I think this idea of setting students up for how to think and how to love the learning process, right? I'm in the process right now of looking for a middle school for my daughter, and there's lots of choices in the neighborhood that we live in. And that's a beautiful gift that we have choices. Not everybody has
Mm.
choices. So I recognize that in my corner of the universe, having choices to put her in is a gift. Um, but we're looking for choices, not because I want to put her in this middle school so that she'll get into the Ivy League school of her dreams or of my dreams, right? But instead, that it's going to give her that love for learning. I am, in my early 50s and with a doctorate, and yet I crave learning every day. Every day, I'm like, what can I learn today? In fact, my daughter and I at dinner talk about it all the time. What did we learn today? And it's not
Mm.
what did you learn in school today, Jila? It's like, what did we learn today? And I talk about what I learned. And then she talks about what she learned. And most of the time, it has nothing to do with, the Civil War or the history or the math, the division problem or, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with like, I learned that when I said this to my friend, I didn't get the reaction that I thought I would. And so
Mm.
tomorrow I'm going to try something. I'm going to say it a different way
Yeah.
to see if I get the reaction I want. Or I say, I learned when I present this way to my team, they shut down. And I could see it in their faces that they were not listening anymore. And so I learned that tomorrow I need to come at it from a more conversational point of view rather than a sit and get point of view or whatever the learning is, right? So every day we try to talk about what we learned. And so I think in this education space that we should really be thinking less about what are the students getting on the standardized tests? What are they getting on their grades? But instead, what are they learning and how are they enjoying that learning process? Is there rigor in the conversation? Is there dialogue between students about their opinion on that subject versus another kid's opinion on that subject? So, this idea that there's sort of that conversation and grappling with choices and learning how to disagree, because right now the world is, and I can speak from the United States point of view, there's a lot of polarization, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of this side versus this side knows, this side doesn't. And yet nobody's listening to each other. Nobody's having real
Mm.
productive conversation that values each point of view and hears each other and digs into the why do you feel that way? Opposed to just, I feel that way because I said so kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And so I hope that education really, I can only do it from my little corner of my company's world, but is pushing the envelope on how are we setting students up for that, being okay with different opinions, asking questions, seeking to understand each other. And that seeking to understand can get to the fact that most of us have more in common than not. And most of us as humans have more in common than we give credit to. And instead, we want to fight each other all the time, opposed to listening and learning and seeking to understand. So I'm hoping that the education system, especially with AI emerging and at rapid rates, that thinks less and less about the basics that AI is going to do for them, and instead pushes the narrative of how do we get students to be okay with people being different than them.
I love that. I think it goes back to what you said at the very earlier part of our conversation around connection.
Yeah.
And I
Uh,
think I struggle. Well, I've said this in other podcast episodes, but my internal struggle is connection versus autonomy. And
mm,
the part where I know I need people and I enjoy people, sometimes I just want to
mhm,
be selfish and do whatever I want to
mhm.
do, whenever I want to do it,
Sure.
however I want to do. And
Yeah.
but in order to live like you can't. there has to be balance. And part of that is
Uh-huh.
understanding how to communicate, how to connect,
Uh-huh.
how
Uh-huh.
to give and take.
Yeah.
And I think I agree in this world of polarization, that communication bit gets
Uh-huh.
harder because people don't listen. So
Uh-huh.
I hope what you say comes to pass in bigger spades.
Yeah. Well, what you just said was really fascinating to me about this concept of sometimes you want to connect with some people and you want to give and take and have collaboration happen. And sometimes you just want to do it yourself and you want to, be alone, maybe even not with
Yeah, yeah,
others.
yeah, yeah.
And that in and of itself is part of what I hope gets taught, like how to express what you need in the times
Mm,
that you need it. Because if people could express, hey, right now I have a boundary and I need to be alone and I need
yeah,
to
yeah,
have some
yeah.
space, and people aren't putting pressure on that person to like, no, you need to be with community. You need to be with us. You need to talk to us. And instead like, oh, let's leave them alone for a little while. And then when that person says, hey, I'm now ready to join the circle. I'm now ready to be a part of the collaboration, that you don't go, well, yeah, but yesterday you didn't want to be here and now you want to be here. And like, no, okay, now it's time for you to come in, and let people sort of ebb and flow based on their own internal clock of, I need to be with, I need to be without, I need to be alone, I need to be with people. Right? I feel like we put too much pressure on, you either need to be in community with people or you need to be a lone wolf, And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
why can't you do a little bit of both based on, what you're feeling in the moment, right? And allowing people to sort of ebb and flow as they please. I mean, most people call me an extrovert when they meet me, right? Because I'm, I have stories and I want to talk to people, but I probably am more of an amnivert or amnivert. I think
Ambivert,
that's the
yeah,
word.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
there's
me too.
moments where, yeah, yes, I want to be with people and I want to communicate and I want to be in collaboration. And then there's other times where that is exhausting and I just want to be by myself and I want to have my door closed and I want to read a book and I don't want to talk to anybody, And so I think that's okay. And, we obviously find our people, we surround ourselves with people that accept that and love that about us. But if we all sort of saw that in people and let people kind of ebb and flow as they need to in this world, I think we'd all be in a better position and probably less polarized.
Definitely. I think what I observe is, and I think I'm very fortunate because actually, where I do a contract, I said to you before we joined this call, they know me well enough. I don't often need to shut down, but if I say I'm having a really stressful day, I need to just not to talk to people for today so I can focus on this work. They get it and they're fine. They're
Love
like,
it.
we're here if
So
you need me.
beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it's the same with my friends. But I think what I do observe though is part of it is very much contextualized to where you're working. So I've worked in other environments, and this is the first environment actually I've worked in where I'm there are more women. It's not more women than men, but there's more women than I've ever worked with before. I've been in very
Ah,
male-dominated environments. And
yeah.
so I think going back to your thing about perfection, I felt like I can't let up
Yes.
that I am having a bad day because by being the only woman, I somehow represent all women. And
Women.
therefore, if I have a bad day, the whole female society is letting down the world.
Yes.
And so I don't know whether it is that shift in environment or the fact that I'm older and more comfortable with who I am,
Mm,
but
mm,
to your point, if we can have those conversations earlier, if we can
yeah.
teach our children that this is life, and the thing that does make me sad is I thought with the pandemic we'd learned that actually even introverts need people. Like very few
Oh,
of us are actually hermits,
yes. Nobody wants to be a
but we
hermit. Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but very
well,
few.
very few,
Yes.
but we do very quickly fall back into this very fast-paced, performance-based,
Uh-huh.
being perfect,
Uh-huh.
as you've all these things you've talked about. So I
Uh-huh.
do think I would love to see what we're talking about in the future generations coming up, going, "Hey guys, like chill out.
Uh-huh.
Like it's okay to have a
Uh-huh.
good day, a bad day.
Uh-huh.
Let's communicate. Let's
Uh-huh.
let's have some alone time." And so the world that
Yeah.
you're selling, I think, sounds amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, this Gen Alpha generation, so they're called the Gen Alphas, right? They're my daughter's generation, right? This 11-year-old, they're are coming after the Gen Zs that are out there now, right? I've been very impressed with how in tune they are to this conversation that we're having at very young
Mm,
ages. And I think because they are digital natives, because they know how to use technology as if it's just part of their arm, right? But they're not and they're also being raised by digital natives, whereas most of the Gen Zers are raised by millennials or Gen Xers, which is what I am. And those millennials and Gen Xers weren't digital natives. We became digital natives, right, later, but we knew a life without technology. We knew
Yeah.
a life without the internet. We knew a life, right? And even millennials knew a life, or they were raised by people that knew a life without technologies. But now this new generation, these Gen Alphas, don't know a life without it. So they're not as, they actually are less like obsessed with it in a weird way. They're less reliant on it because it's just another tool. It's not like
Mm.
novel and new, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
have a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
hope. Yeah, I have a lot of hope for that generation because I feel like, especially as I'm watching my daughter go into the tween years, right? Tweens don't like to be controlled. They don't like to be told. They're in that weird place of, not weird, it's a beautiful place of, I'm still a kid. I'm not quite a teenager, but I'm fighting the hormones are changing and I'm starting to like
Yeah.
fight this like, wait, but I still want to be a kid, but I also want to be a little older. They've got this internal struggle going on, right? And so I feel like my daughter will tell me all the time, Mommy, why are you still on your phone? Right? Or, hey, let's get outside and take a walk. Or like she's constantly reminding me the things that I've told her when she
Mm-hmm.
recognizes we're not doing, because she sees like, I could do technology anytime I want. That's just like a given. Why don't we do something unique and different? So I don't know. I have a lot, and unique and different to her is getting outside and not being on technology, or, playing a game, a real card game that has nothing to do with, a computer. And so I don't know. I have a lot of hope for this next generation coming up. And I know people keep thinking, well, you're a little eternal optimist here, but I really do. I have a hope for this generation because I think they are seeing this world divided right now. They're seeing a lot of this polarization noise. They're seeing how technology has affected in negative ways the older generation. And so I think they're in a good place of like breaking that cycle of being lost and not knowing, can I be an introvert? Can I be an extrovert? Can I be an ambivert?
Mm.
Can I be both? And they're going to have good dialogue because they're set up with tools for success for that. So I'm really hopeful for this next generation coming up. And I'm
D-
hopeful that other people are hopeful for them too, because we all
I
deserve
think so.
that.
My niece and my goddaughter are both 13, and I see the same kind of behaviors from them. In fact, sometimes I'm like, how are you so like
Yeah.
grounded, considering you should be an emotional turmoil. I was at your age.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, I do see that in both of them, which is wonderful. So I'm also
Yeah.
optimistic. There we go.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Well, it's
Yeah.
been wonderful talking to you. If people want to get
Yes.
involved with Smart Lab or reach out, ask you more questions, how can they do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So they can absolutely go on our website, smartlablearning.com. So that's smartlab, SMART, lab, LAB, and then learning.com. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Dr. Jennifer Berry. I'd be happy to engage with people on LinkedIn. But I hope people check it out. I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do right now and in with Smart Lab is to encourage businesses, philanthropists, entrepreneurs to invest in their communities. So invest in school districts, go to your school district and say, hey, I want to donate some money to the school district so they can put in project-based, STEM-based learning into the school, namely Smart Lab, but really any kind of STEM-based learning that they want. But really encourage schools to put in project-based STEM learning and hopefully Smart Lab into school districts and help school districts out, because school districts are tight with funding and across the world, whether you're in the United States or if you're in England or you're in Africa, there is a lot of money that's needed to ensure that students are set up for success. And so I hope businesses and individuals and philanthropists and business leaders say, you know what, if I am going to be a part of the solution of raising the next generation of thoughtful leaders and thoughtful individuals that are going to make a difference in this world, I should put money into school districts to help students become best versions of themselves and to really get the STEM identity that we've really talked about today. So I'm hopeful that people not only reach out to me and also reach out to on our website to learn more, but also think about where can I put my money and my time, not just my resources, but also my time into school districts to help students become the best versions of themselves. Because that's really, to me, the best kind of activism you can do right now.
Love that. Thank you. I'll put that all in the show notes. People can find you. But
Great.
Dr. Jennifer Berry, thank you so much. I
Thank
wish you
you.
well, and I look forward to see Smart Labs keep doing its amazing work.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed the conversation. You're wonderful.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah.